Good morning and welcome. My name is Michael Lipscomb and I am with Dr. Frank Wilczek. This meet is brought to you by the Integrated Systems Center at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. The ISC is dedicated to promoting convergence, a form of domain-diverse research that combines life science and medicine on the one hand with physical science and engineering on the other. What follows is the opening event of a celebration of the birthday of Dr. Wilczek, the Feynman of our times. Dr. Wilczek is a theoretical physicist, author, and intellectual adventurer. He received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2004 for the discovery of asymptotic freedom in the theory of strong interaction. He is currently the Hermann Feshball Professor of Physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, founding director of T.D. Lee Institute and chief scientist at the Wilczek Quantum Center, Shanghai Jiao Tong University, distinguished professor at Arizona State University, and full professor at Stockholm University. Dr. Wilczek has made seminal contributions to fundamental particle physics, cosmology, and the physics of materials. His current theoretical research includes works on axions, anions, and time crystals, concepts in physics which he named and pioneered. In addition to his research, Dr. Wilczek has originated and championed educational programs all over the world. He is the author of many books and articles, including books for a lay audience, including Longing for the Harmonies, Themes and Variations from Modern Physics, A Beautiful Question, Finding Nature's Deep Design, and his latest, Fundamentals, 10 Keys to Reality. In a moment, I will give the floor to Dr. Wilczek and let him speak ad libitum. First, however, I would like to thank the prime movers of this event, who are Dr. Murat Tanik, Wallace R. Bunn Endowed Chair for Telecommunications at UAB's Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, Dr. Donna Slavinsky, Senior Associate Dean for Academic and Faculty Affairs at UAB's School of Health Professions, and Dr. Frank Skidmore, Neurologist at St. Vincent's Hospital in Birmingham and Adjunct Faculty at UAB's Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. Without their impetus, this event would not have happened. With that said, Dr. Wilczek, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me second the thanks to Dr. Tanik, Dr. Skidmore, and Dr. Slavinsky, and add a thanks to Dr. Lipscomb, who I suspect had a lot to do with this, and a special thanks to my friend and colleague Steven Weinberg for gracing this event with his august presence, it's really remarkable. And I'm celebrating, if that's the right word, my 70th birthday, which is at this point in my life, the birthdays are a mixed blessing, I would say, but definitely having the embrace of friends and appreciation, and even being mentioned in the company of Feynman and Steve Weinberg is just takes a lot of the sting out of getting older. Okay, so with that, let me begin my little presentation. I'm going to talk about my most recent book, Fundamentals, which really was inspired by questions from my friends, like who are lawyers, doctors, or just intelligent people from many walks of life who don't necessarily have an education in physics or mathematics, but they've heard and they're interested and they're curious and they're smart, and they'd like to know what it is, what's all the excitement about, what do physicists have to offer in understanding the world. And I feel the answer is we have a lot to offer. Over the course of the last several centuries, physics has discovered remarkable and absolutely surprising and true things about the world that everyone can appreciate and have their experience of reality enriched by. So I tried to think about boiling them down to the real essentials in writing fundamentals, and about, and I wound up writing it not only for my friends, but also for myself as a teenager, going back to the questions that inspired me to enter science in the first place. And then even as I was writing, my first and only grandson was born. And I thought about writing for him when he gets curious. What has reality taught me over the last 50 years in my deep engagement with physical reality? What are the most important, deepest general lessons? And I won't be able to convey everything that's in the book by a long shot, but I will try to give you a taste of this sort of things that emerge as dominant themes that are documented, filled in, and extrapolated within the book. So the first big lesson is humility. And you can see why the universe teaches us humility already from this kind of famous picture. This is the Earth seen from the moon. And you see, even from the moon, which on cosmic scales is a nearby object, the Earth looks like a small circle in the sky. It's a beautiful circle. It's rich and dynamic and colorful, but nevertheless, it's a small object in the sky, and that's where all of our lives and human history has played out over, and it's a humbling thought. But then it gets worse or more serious when you peer out with instruments deeper out into the sky. This is the Hubble Deep Field image. When you look towards very dim objects, you find the sky is full of galaxies. So this image is dominated by galaxies as opposed to stars. Each galaxy contains many billions of stars, and many of the stars support solar systems, planets, many probably can support planets not so different from our own. And yeah, it's there's no lack of lessons in humility that emerge from the deep study of nature. It extends not only in space, but also in time. We find that human history and humans all together, and even mind in the cosmos, in the sense that we would think of mind, is a relatively recent development, and certainly a human life span is very short. One way of quantifying that and bringing it to life is to think about compressing the life of the universe into 1 year, just compressing, scaling it linearly. And then you see that it began about 13.8 billion years ago with a very hot, dense origin in the Big Bang. And then we skip ahead and find that on December 25th, the dinosaurs emerged. So as a Christmas present, we have dinosaurs. That 624 is the great extinction event, the asteroid that hit the Earth and caused the dinosaurs to go extinct, and the mammals to begin emerging. And then late on the evening of December 31st, humans to emerge. So there's ample reason for humility, the universe teaches us. On the other hand, Hutzpah is also justified. Hutzpah may be as a word and a concept that's not as well known as it should be. So here is the definition. It's from Yiddish, and it means basically audacity, but has a bit more of a ring to it somehow. It means insolence, cheek, or audacity. That is overcoming humility. Here is what Blaise Pascal said in this regard: the spaces of the universe enfold and swallow me up like a speck, but by the power of thought, I may comprehend the universe. And here is the underlying reason why that's not a crazy attitude. This is a small slice of the human hippocampus. This is the organ where, among other things, short-term memories get consolidated into long-term memories. This is a drawing by the renowned neuroanatomist Ramani Kahal. Of course, to do this drawing, you take a thin slice of hippocampus and you dye it with something called the Golgi stain, which stains very selectively, about 1 in 1,000 cells. And you can see, even with that kind of slicing and pruning, there's an enormous amount of complexity that's emerged, that each of these units, each of these cells is a complex information processing unit. And there are many, many of them wired together in complex but structured ways. And so even though we're small compared to the universe, we're large compared to what it takes to think, to process information. And so we can do it. And this is the demonstration that's not only possible from a physical point of view, that we can do impressive things, but that we're doing it. This is the gross domestic product. I won't go into the technical definition of what that means, but it's a measure of economic power, the power to direct nature's productions to our own human uses as a function of time. And you see that for many centuries, it was basically static. But as humans in recent years have begun to understand the physical world better, it's increased exponentially with no end in sight. So we really do have the power to not only appreciate nature, but to use nature, to demonstrate our power by directing nature to serve our ends. Einstein famously said this: the most incomprehensible thing about the world is that it is comprehensible, of course. So our Hutzpah is rewarded by nature. And this is a profound fact about nature, that it's yielded to the program of understanding small things very completely, and then building up to an understanding of more complex things, how to build more sensitive instruments, how to reach out to the universe, both at its smallest scales and its larger scales, and reach out to short times and long times. Another great lesson that I learned, and it's kind of the capstone to fundamentals, is the concept of complementarity. This was a concept that Niels Bohr especially emphasized and abstracted from quantum mechanics. It's really a necessary part of understanding how quantum mechanics works. The primary objects are wave functions in quantum theory, but wave functions need to be processed in order to answer concrete questions. And there are different ways of processing them depending on the question. If you want to understand how things are dispersed in space, then you have to use process the wave function in one way. If you want to understand how things are moving, you have to process it in a different way. And those two different ways of processing interfere with each other. They can't both be done at once. This is the mathematical content of Heisenberg's, that corresponds to Heisenberg's physical uncertainty principle. So there can be different ways of addressing the same reality that are both valid and both give important insights, are valid ways of answering different questions, but sort of can't be done at once, or at least it's very difficult to do them at once, and maybe better not attempted. A beautiful example of this was pointed out to me by my musical friend Minna Polanen, and that's that in music, there are two aspects. There's a harmonic aspect and a melodic aspect. The harmonic aspect has to do with what's going on at one particular time. So it's kind of a local thing, analogous to asking questions about position. The melodic aspect is more about how of the flow and the global structure of the music, and it has to be analyzed in a different way. And it's very difficult in a complex piece of music to do both at once. Really, you have to listen more than once, get these structures in mind, and only then can you appreciate the thing as a whole. I think, as Bohr did, that this kind of idea applies much more generally. It's not just a thing about quantum mechanics or a way of thinking about musical analysis, but a kind of wisdom that you can bring to many questions of life and what are often thought of as philosophical questions, like tension between determinism and free will, the tension between is and ought, and the tension between amazing and familiar are some examples of complementary ways of looking at the same objects, the same situations, the same subjects, each of which answers different questions and can enrich our experience of those things. And it also enlightens us sometimes in a humorous way about jokes. So here's something that if you look at it this way is clearly a duck. And if you look at it this way is clearly a rabbit, and thinking about it in different ways reveals different aspects of its being. Another thing that's to me been a remarkable experience in interacting with the physical world and really engaging with the frontiers of research is how often great answers spawn great questions. So at present, we have a problem in physics about there seems to be an unknown form of matter that cosmologists have discovered for us, that we have seen its gravitational effects, but we don't know what it is in the sense of understanding its other properties, like what the mass of it is and how it interacts with matter. And then remarkably, in thinking about fundamental physics, answering questions about fundamental physics, we're led to the proposal of a new kind of particle called an axion. It's a remarkable thing that Professor Weinberg is in the audience, who was also one of the fathers of the axion concept. And people now are all over the world seeing if this potential answer to what the dark matter is, axions have just the right properties to be the dark matter, whether that is the case. And just to give you a little bit of a flavor of what's involved, the way we can try to detect axions is by making specialized antennas that in the presence of magnetic fields convert axions into photons. We know that that's one of the fundamental interactions of axions, and photons are things we know how to detect. But I'm going to pause while that helicopter passes overhead. I thought it would be nice to, in a festive spirit, to do this outdoors, which I think it is. You can see a beautiful background, but it comes with some downside. Okay, now we'll resume. The ultimate question, I think, is where are we in all these equations? How does mind emerge from matter? There are two aspects to that. First of all, looking sideways, what is the mechanics? How does it work at a molecular level? And then there's also the question of how did it happen in the evolution of the universe arriving at us. So this picture from John Wheeler that I remember first encountering as a student and thinking, what a crazy picture that is, I've now come to appreciate really is a lovely representation of many things that, but in particular that there's a great question still at the frontiers between physics, philosophy, and neurobiology, of how does mind emerge from matter, also computer science, and that it ties up with understanding the world at a molecular level, getting the laws right, and also to fully appreciate it, understanding how it all happened as in the course of history. So those are some of the kinds of questions that are discussed in fundamentals, and I hope give you a flavor of what they are and the approach that's taken in the book. There's lots more, but I want to give you a chance to ask questions, and also I don't want to discourage you from buying the book to find out what's in it in more detail. So thank you very much, and I will end my presentation here and hopefully open up to some questions.